Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney,
And I'm MK.
and how are you today?
I'm great. I had a very interesting weekend. Um
Okay.
on Friday night, I watched a movie that I genuinely think my life would have been better if I hadn't watched it. Um,
Interesting. Please elaborate.
um, Doug chose the movie, and Dan had already seen it and does not like it. David and I had not seen it. And David absolutely loved the movie. And I ended it by literally looking at Doug and David and asking them if I was just too stupid to understand the movie or if it was really that bad. And that movie was
Very nice.
Annihilation.
I've not seen it. I do not know.
It's starring Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaacs.
Okay.
And it is like a weird it's a weird fucking sci-fi movie that kind of has like the same vibes as like The Last of Us and like zombie apocalypse shit, but it's not zombie apocalypse. It's just like fucking weird.
Like end of days? Like is it what's the
No,
word? No, not end of days. Not
no,
apocalyptic or anything.
no. It
Interesting.
it's I hate it. Like I genuinely hated it. And at one point, I was explaining that one sequence was the biggest waste of my time that I'd ever seen in a movie. And David goes, "Oh God, that was my favorite scene." I go, "Great." So, like, you and I don't have the same taste in movies at all. Good to know.
Yes.
It's weird that all three of us love Stargate as much as we do because I literally, every time either of them has told me to watch a movie, I've fucking hated it.
Well,
So
you live and learn.
that's interesting. But then I stayed up too late on Friday because I was watching that movie, which was really unfortunate because Saturday I went to my first Indian wedding and it was absolutely lovely. But the this was an abbreviated version of an Indian wedding because it
Well,
was
if it's
with
in one day, then yes.
correct. Yeah, absolutely. But also like the groom was white. So it was not
Hmm.
all of the events. Um,
Gotcha.
and I was still wearing heels for 16 hours. So like it was a long day, but it was
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. My favorite part was the fact that the entire ceremony was in Hindi and all of the Indian people were like so into it and all of the white people were just like watching to see when they were supposed to stand up and clap and everything and it was like so funny to me.
That was me at
Um
Catholic Church as a child.
Yeah, and Dan, we like they gave you a this beautiful like gold like plated list of the events for the ceremony, and then they did them not even close to the order that they printed them in. So Dan was like looking at it, trying to figure out where we were, and I go, "No, this is what they're doing right now, but they just did that, and they already did that one." And he literally just goes, "All I know is that they haven't walked around the fire 7 times yet, because that one I think I could see." And I go, "Correct,
Sure.
we didn't do that one yet."
Yeah. Oh
But
gosh, that's now my goal if I get married is to have a very proper list of something and just go off the rails with it. Like no one knows what's going on.
yeah, no,
I love it.
it does help when you're doing it in a different language than half the people speak. So,
Great, I'll do it in French.
oh, that's fine. I can still follow that.
Okay, so you'll be in the half that can follow it.
Great.
I love it. I'll start practicing
Um,
today.
Beautiful. No, and it was beautiful. And so the bride was Dan's twin sister's best friend.
Right.
And I went in place of David. David couldn't get off work, so I was David for the day. But then Lolita was talking to me at the end of the night, and she was like, I was really sad that David wasn't able to be here, but I was really happy that that meant that you could come instead. And I was like, oh, sweetheart. Because I obviously, like, when she sent out the invitations, she had not met me yet, but she had since met me. And her and Alex are lovely, and it was a beautiful wedding. And I'm now, but it was also like funny because there were like things that I understood why they were happening just because I have spent time in Hindu temples and like traveled and seen things. And there were other things that like, even I was like, yeah, no, that one, I'm not 100% sure what he just said. But also, I had a bindi on because I was going to an Indian wedding. But then there was like this weird 3-hour gap between where we went to Barnes and Noble to kill time, because I think every time I've ever gone to a wedding and had to kill time, I've gone to Barnes and Noble between
That
events.
feels like the right choice.
Yeah, but I was walking around Barnes and Noble with heels and a bindi on, and I just felt like I was really not in the world anymore. It was a time.
Yeah. That feels
But
that would have been a sight to see.
yeah, so it was an interesting day. How are you?
Well, I'm fine again. I've been doing some spring cleaning for my life in general. So I haven't done a lot of outward things, but I will tell you about some things that I have found joy in lately. One being a TV show that is not new by any means, surprise, but new to me. I started watching The Good Wife. And I don't know if you've ever watched it, but I love it.
I have not watched it, but I have heard nothing but good things about it.
It's got Matt Shushkri in it. The guy who plays Logan on Gilmore Girls. And Christopher Noth is in it. And I think there's somebody else like I recognize. Oh, and Christine Brinkley.
Because then the spinoff is her show.
The spinoff, which I also haven't seen yet, but we'll be watching in 3.5 seasons.
Good.
I am committed. I've literally that has been the only thing that's brought me joy, I feel like, in the past 2 weeks.
That's Juliana Margulies is the lead in that, right?
I don't know her name.
Oh, okay.
I didn't recognize her outside of this show. So I haven't seen her anything that I know of. But she's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. And I can't stop watching it. So, if you are like me and have put it off for 10 years or so, now's the time. You should watch it. It's really good. I'm also reading a book series, maybe a book duo. I don't think there's any more. I think it's just the two that my mom recommended, by Frida McFadden. The first one's called The Handmaid, and the second one's called The Handmaid's Secret. And it's
okay. I've heard of her.
What's her name? Oh, Frida McFadden. I thought you were looking.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, I was right. It was Juliana. It is Juliana Margulies. I was right about that.
Yeah, Frida McFadden. She's great. This is the first thing I've read from her, but it's really good. The first one is so far better than the second one. I kind of guessed the second one faster than I did. I'm like 80% of the way through the second one, so I kind of guessed what was going to happen way earlier than I did in the first one. But if you're looking for a book to read, it's top notch. Yeah, so those are kind of my updates. I know those were very fast.
Oh, it's The Housemaid, not The Handmaid.
Oh, did I say The Handmaid? Yeah, Housemaid and The Housemaid's Secret.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, she wrote The Devil Wears Scrubs.
Okay, I don't know that one.
I have heard of it. I've never read it, but I've heard of it. Yes. Because she's
very good if you're looking for a thriller. Fast reads.
She's also she writes thrillers and is really a best-selling psychological thriller and medical humor novelist, but it's because she's also currently a practicing physician specializing in brain injury, like NBD.
I love that. That is not mentioned in her thriller. There's nothing about brain injuries in her thriller books. So, well, the very first one, they bashed someone's head in, but that's not really the same.
No.
So, Not you don't have to have a medical degree to know that. That's
No,
how it
but yeah,
works.
that's fantastic. Love that. Love
Yeah.
to
So
see.
I might read that book tonight. I might finish the book tonight because I'm pretty far in.
I'm probably gonna finish the book I'm reading tomorrow, but it's the Nora Roberts one that I was talking
The Nora
about the
Roberts,
other
yeah.
with yeah. Ugh, so close to finishing it. It got like real intense. Like I did not
Mm.
think that there was gonna
You
be
weren't
like
prepared.
I wasn't prepared for there to be like crimey, thrillery stuff in a romance book, but I should have because it's Nora
In a
Roberts
non
and
JD Robb Nora Roberts
exactly.
book, yeah.
It was a non JD Robb Nora Roberts book, so I didn't expect it to be like thrillery, but there's some intense shit in it, and I was like, ooh.
You should send me the title. This is the new one.
No, this is a trilogy that she wrote like a long time ago. But like
Oh, okay.
I was like telling my mom, I was like, I know what the next two books in the trilogy are going to be about, but I don't think it's like obvious to the normal person. I think it's just obvious to me because I like pick up on patterns in a different way when I'm reading than the average reader.
Well, you should send me the
But
series. I'll tell my mom. It sounds up her alley.
yeah,
And then
it's
she can tell
great.
me if it's up my alley.
Great. I think you would enjoy it. It's a little lighter than you would normally read, but I think you would if you just need a break from crime,
Well,
you
I go
might enjoy.
hardcore in my three genres. I have psychological thriller in one genre that I'm like, that's my big one. And then I also will read like chick lit, like um summery, like fun books sometimes. I don't read them in the summer usually. I read them in like the winter usually, which I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And then I have my cozy mystery, which is where I go when I can't read anything else. So
Yeah,
those
no,
are kind of my three mains.
definitely like more chick lit. It's like Hallmark movie, small town, widow,
Mm-hmm.
crazy drama, romantic love story, but like
Yeah.
it's just really fucking well done.
Interesting. I'll have to, I've never read a Nora Roberts book. Maybe I'll give it a go because I've never been a big like true romance reader, but I don't mind a chick lit romance. And so, and
Yeah.
I know that Nora Roberts kind of writes all over the place. She has
Yeah.
such a wide array
No,
of stuff that
this one has a couple like real steamy scenes,
sure.
it's definitely like a Hallmark movie as a book.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, while we're still in happy times, um, do you have some like spiritual guidance for me?
You know, I do kind of. My spiritual quote for
Okay.
today. Well, no, my spiritual quote for today is not really like advice or guidance. It's just kind of a statement. Um, but it is we live in a rainbow of chaos.
We do indeed.
It's by Paul Cézanne, the painter. And I think that's
Okay.
just, like even the shitty things are beautiful when you remember that like that's what life is. Like it's a rainbow of
Yeah.
chaos.
When you
And I
come
think
out of them, you remember, this was for the best.
everything every experience paints a color in your life, even the bad ones. And if we didn't have black, things would not be pretty. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
that's nice. That's nice. I do love that. I do love that. Um, but no, something else that I'm pretty invested. I know we're only on episode 2, but I'm pretty invested. We're
Glad
getting
you are,
to
because I feel like I'm not yet. Like I went to watch it today and I wanted to talk about this because I went to watch it today and realized that like I didn't care. I never don't finish a show. Like if I start watching a show, I will
yeah.
watch it all the way through, even if I hate every episode. But I was like, if I never watch the second episode, my life is gonna be no different. And I feel bad because I think that's the first time in a show that we've done that I felt that way. And I feel less that way after the second episode, but I'm still not like as invested in it as I was in Bates.
I think
And
it's a slow build.
yeah, and so I'm hoping I get there. But I'm glad you're invested in it because then at least the podcast won't be as apathetic as I am.
Yes, that's true. That's great. Yeah, I'm ready. I have high expectations.
Okay.
Um,
I
but
mean, I will say the end of this episode was the first time that I was like, wait, what? I need to see more. So
yeah. So I think it's gonna be wild. Like I said, I think it was a slow burn. I don't know how I got picked up. So I didn't dislike the pilot. Let me start there. but I don't know how it got picked up from just the pilot.
Right. I would agree with that.
But I think it was probably for the nostalgia of it, for the like recreating The Exorcist. But again, I don't know that I would have picked it up just from that. But this episode sent it off the rails a bit. So this is season 1, episode 2 of The Exorcist, called Lupus in Fabula. Which means something. I wrote it to.
On the devil.
No, this one means the wolf in this. The wolf.
Oh.
Speak of the wolf.
Oh, and
yeah. Speak of the wolf and he will come, which is a reference to the devil, but it just doesn't literally translate to that.
Oh, okay. When they talk about it in the show, and often when you hear that, people are saying "speak of the devil and he will appear," but the literal translation is wolf. The thought translation is devil.
Lupus,
Got it. That's what, because I was like, no, I know that means call on the devil though.
Yes. It does, and that's what people reference a lot. It aired September 30th of 2016. It was rated 7.9 out of 10, which was a smidge down from last week.
Which is
number
weird.
one songs. It is weird. But again, I think the first episode probably had a big following, come in. Number one song, Still Closer. The number one movie is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Did you ever watch that movie?
Oh, I didn't.
So I only watched, I don't even know if they made more. I watched the first one and I liked it, but I read the books and I really liked the books.
I've heard that. I've heard that the books are really good.
They are. They're chaotic, to reference your rainbow metaphor. And then the number one book is Commonwealth by Anne Patchett. I have not read it. I do not know what it's about. I recognize the cover though. It's a white cover with oranges on it. And if you saw it, you'd probably recognize it because I remember it being really big in 2016. I just haven't read it. I don't know what it's about.
Okay.
On this day, some tragedies happened.
Oh.
As you can imagine. Hurricane Matthew, the one that hit Haiti, hit Category 5 today.
Okay.
Alabama judge Roy Moore was suspended for telling people to ignore the gay marriage ruling. And Oscar Brand, who is in our catalog at the office, died at 96.
So this was the end of September 2016, and Hurricane Matthew, then after it hit Haiti, moved to Florida. And and it closed Disney World, which was weird. It was the first time that they closed Disney for a hurricane. And the guy that I had dated while I was at Disney used it as an excuse to make me feel bad for him and talk to me for a little bit. And then he decided that he was wrong. What had happened was we broke up because I left Florida, but he was very immature about it and decided that he literally told me, I wanted to make you hate me because it would have been easier for you. So he said a bunch of shit that was just offensive and untrue, purely to hurt me, to make it easier for us to break up. But then during the
guy that was younger than you?
Yeah. But then during the hurricane, he got scared and called me, and I was on the phone with him all night while he was in the hurricane. And then the next day he disappeared again.
Yeah, that tracks.
So the fall of 2016 was a fucking time for me. But not as bad for me as the people who obviously genuinely got hurt in the hurricane. Sorry. But I was you were saying that, and I was September 2016, why was that so shitty? And I was oh, Robert, that's why.
Yeah, I remember when it happened. I was in law school when it happened, and they were doing relief and stuff. So I remember that. It was fun times, good times. The director of this episode is Michael Ninkin. He is known for The Good Lord Bird. That means nothing to me and is a terrible title, but
correct,
not my choice. Billy the Kid and Chapelwaite, I think is how you say it. I recognize it. Chapelwaite. I think it's Chapelwaite.
Yeah, I think so.
And Battlestar Galactica, the ones from 2005 to 2009.
Nice. That one I know. The rest of those I did not, but that one I know.
I have no fun facts about any of these people today. I'm so sorry.
Great.
They are not exciting, I
They're
guess. They
not
just have
fun.
done exciting things. The writer is Jeremy Slater, who we mentioned last week, and Heather Belson. And Heather Belson is known for The Sandman, Raised by Wolves, The Walking Dead, and The Exorcist, but not so much as a writer as a producer. So she's the co-executive producer of The Exorcist.
Okay.
And she was a producer, whether it, co-exec or whatever on the rest of these shows. Um, our editor is Victor Dubois, who is known for The Last Samurai, 30 something, Never Back Down, and House from 1985, not the TV show, a film from 1985.
The
Which I've
Last
never heard of.
Samurai, that is the one with Tom Cruise, right?
I think so. I haven't seen it, but I've
Okay.
heard of it.
Yeah.
I've heard of that and Never Back Down, but I haven't heard of the
Yeah.
other two. And then I thought this was going to be more exciting, so I'm sorry. Our star that we're going to talk about this week, so I'm going in billing order, is Hannah Kasolka, who plays Casey.
I actually watched the credits today to see who the next name would be, to see who you would talk about.
Look at you paying attention. She is known for, first and foremost, The Exorcist, but she's also known for Modern Family. I think she played a small role. It was somebody I didn't recognize their name, so
Okay.
I would guess a small role. A show, Love, that I never got into, but I did try to watch once, and True Blood. And I couldn't figure out, I think she played 18-year-old Sookie Stack, because it says under the credits 18-year-old, and then it wouldn't expand. And I couldn't find her in the True Blood credits. So
I guess that makes sense. I guess I could see how she could look similar to Anna Paquin.
I couldn't figure out who else she would have played an 18-year-old
Yeah.
when I was like,
right.
So I was like, I'm guessing that's who she played. Again, haven't seen it though.
Yeah.
I do not like Anna Paquin as an actor.
Me either.
She's not a good actor. And like I love the Sookie Stackhouse series, one of my favorite book series. And I haven't watched True Blood. And I think it's mainly because I don't like Anna Paquin. So now that we've settled that,
right.
Let's get into it. So of course we start with just demonic voices. Super cool, super fun. And then we go into this room with the priest and these small children, and I was like, is this how you create priests? Like, you just introduce them to demons and as a child? So that was not terrifying at all. They have all these like artifacts, like these like crucifix and all that around the room,
right,
to terrify these demons. And a child runs in and immediately like starts vomiting. Like, obviously he's got something going on, bless his heart. And then a small child, who we later learn is Father Marcus, but a small child goes into these creepy tunnels. This is some kind of like catacomb situation or just like creepy tunnels, but this is where we are. And he goes, and I was like, great, he immediately gets a curse placed on him. I don't think it was a curse now, but at the time I was like, that's immediately what happened. There's this like demon human thing that is chained up in the underground, which seems a little inhumane, but I guess it's a demon, so it is what it is. I don't know what else to do with the demon.
Right. You can't just like let them lay in bed. We saw how that worked out.
Yeah, I also probably wouldn't introduce children to it though. Like, that doesn't seem like the right choice either.
No. So
that's fine.
We're good. We're great.
Yeah. So then we jump to present day to Father Marcus. And he's just like chilling, hanging out. And that's where we realized that it was referencing him.
Yeah.
And then we jump over to Angela's house, and she's gone downstairs to get a midnight snack, as you do. And she starts hearing a demonic voice, turns around, it's coming from Casey.
And the demonic voice is saying some creepy ass shit. Like, even if somebody was saying that about my daughter, even if they weren't a demon, I would stab them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was very inappropriate things the demon was saying, as they tend to do. And it turns out Casey had just been sitting in the dark with this demon, I guess. And So Angela, being smart, records it all because we're living in a world of technology, unlike,
Right.
what was
1973.
it, 60, yeah, 73. I was like, what year was that movie? Yeah, we just watched. Unlike 1973, where we couldn't record anything, at least not as well.
Right.
Um, so she recorded it all, and she, we hear the demon be like, your mom's watching you, this and this, it's time to wake up. And he like jumps out and wakes her up. And I was kind of surprised by this scene because Angela found out it was Casey much faster than I would have expected. Because like I know that like Tomas like said it was her, obviously from the attic, but like I thought that was going to be held out a bit longer. So we're moving very quickly, so I feel like my my predictions are not going to hold for
Well,
very long.
and I also, one of my notes is about things moving quicker than I thought they would. Not related to the actual plot. So when we get to that thought, I will tell you what I immediately had thoughts about.
Great. Yeah, I will say I think we said the same thing about Bates Motel. When it
That's true.
started,
We definitely
everything
did
moved
think
very
that in
quickly.
season one that things moved too
Um,
quickly.
and it still panned out very well in the end.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. I mean, it is only 2 seasons, so maybe there's a reason for that.
I wonder I
But
wonder if it ended on purpose or if it got canceled.
I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah.
I do not know, but I'm sure we will find out. And that's where we get our full credits for the first time.
Huh. As I
So
was watching the credits, I go, wait, there definitely weren't credits last week. No, there
just
weren't.
title. We just had a title page. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought they were really good credits. It was like
I did. I
smoky
like them.
out. I always love a smoky credit scene. You're gonna sell me every time with one. So
No, and I love a good credit scene that is like just a nice song with like subtle imagery that is important to the show that's not like overwhelming. Like it
yeah.
reminds me of The Crown's credit sequence.
Mm.
That's like where it's just like the images of the crown with just like a
I feel
really
like
nice music.
Hemlock Grove was like that. It had a
Yeah, Hemlock
it
Grove
had a
was
nice
like
like
that.
credit
I
scene.
really did
Mhm.
love the credits of Hemlock Grove. I didn't love a lot of Hemlock Grove, but I loved the credit sequence.
Yeah. And it was like it gave you a lot without giving it away. Like it was
Yeah.
very good. That was one thing they did right. Yeah, so post credits we have Tomas, who has gone to talk to Father Egan, and he's telling him about Casey, and he's showing him the video, and Father Egan is just like completely ignoring him. He's like, you're
Yeah.
doing all these great things. You've got your homeless program. You've got everything like I think maybe the Pope's coming in or one of his
Yeah,
holiness, like he
no,
claims,
that's
so I assume the Pope.
exactly. Yes. So that's
Um,
exactly where my first issue comes in. He goes to see the bishop. Great. The auxiliary bishop of Chicago.
mhm.
Fantastic. He goes to see the bishop. And let me tell you, as someone who is personally dealing with some needing conversations with the bishop this week, I get it. Um, that doesn't make a lot of sense to anyone who doesn't know that story, so we're just gonna move on. But I get it. You gotta talk to the bishop before you can do anything. I do. But A, that bishop sucked.
He
And
just completely
B,
wrote him off.
and B, you're gonna tell me in episode 2 we're already dragging the fucking Pope in? That's when I was like, this is moving a little faster. That when they were like, His Holiness is on his way, I go, no. It's episode 2. 2. If the first episode of season 2 was like, the Pope's coming to Chicago, I'd be like, holy shit. It is episode 2 of season 1, and you're already going to the Pope. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it.
I very much agree. And we've already started like really jumping into the original film.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is what happened. He's like talking about it, and they're like, none of this is real. Take her to a doctor. I mean, it's the same thing, except it was Chris. Was that her name in the film? The bomb?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris went
Yeah.
to talk to a priest, and people are all set to get mental health. So he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
but isn't that my job? And he's like, no, absolutely not. Exorcisms are not your job. And I was like,
Which,
what
okay,
job are they then?
to be fair, um not actually, if you are the head priest of a parish, that no, that is actually not your job. Your job is to be to like take care of that church and the people of
Mhm.
that church. And that often ends up being like a lot more of like finances and planning and things that you don't really like necessarily want to be your job. Like, but like uh shit like exorcisms, definitely not like a parish priest's job.
But like, if you're gonna go to the bishop, you
Yeah,
should get it taken
so
care
what
of
should
past there,
happen?
right? Like,
Yeah, so what should happen? What should happen is that like you go to the bishop and you have proof and you say this is what happened. The bishop, who is in charge of that city, but like not really in charge of much else, would call a cardinal to, and the cardinal would send a priest who is specifically trained in exorcisms to come to you. I don't think people really do exorcisms anymore. I'm going to be 100%.
yeah, I don't think so either.
And if they do, it is much more like creepy secret, the way Father Marcus and Father Bennett have been talking about it, because like I'm very involved in the Catholic Church and I have never heard of that happening. So yeah.
But like, when you have that kind of proof, like,
um
that feels a little more
to
indisputable.
to be fair, that also could have just been schizophrenia.
Well, it could have been. That's also true. That's also true.
So
It just feels like a fast write off. Like, sure, maybe be
it
like, here, let's
does
try these other things
it
too,
it
but
does
don't
feel like
act
a
like it's
fast
not
write-off.
real.
But if there was video of what was happening in the attic,
Mm.
then maybe the priest wrote it off too fast. The video that Angela sent, her being weird and talking to herself in a different voice at the dining room table without actually like doing anything, like agreed. But in the bishop's defense, that genuinely could just be schizophrenia, and he's right that she should exercise the mental health avenues before you exercise the
Sure.
exorcism avenues.
Well, yes, 100%.
So
100% agree with that.
like everyone's right, but also everyone's wrong.
Right. Yes. Correct. Correct. But this is the moment where we learn Father Marcus has gone missing from St. Aquinas. And it's like, okay. And so
So like is St. Aquinas like also a mental facility? Like I
I
felt
think
like it
we're
was
gonna find out. So they mentioned something later on in the episode about it.
okay, because
That we'll come to.
I understand that it was like a home, but like I also, again, because of my intense experience in the Catholic Church, I know that there are places that are just like homes for like nuns and priests that are just like too old or too infirm to do their work. And obviously, Marcus is not like in the physically best shape because he was real sickly when he got back from Mexico. So like
We'll get to it.
I didn't really feel like at first, obviously, yes, we'll get to it, but I
Mhm.
didn't really feel like at first that it was a place he couldn't leave.
Yeah, I think it was more that like he left and no one could find him. Like I think it was that he kind of like went off the grid.
Right. And that
But
is a
that's
little
also what I
sketchy.
thought at the moment. I was like, I didn't think that he was like held there. I was thinking like he left and he was living in a home and they tried to get in touch with him and no one could find him.
Right.
And so that was my feeling at this moment. Um, yeah. So then we go back to Angela, who is talking to this woman who means nothing to me. Um, but it seems like they're talking about the Pope coming into town and where he'll stay and staying at some undisclosed location, but all of his people need to stay somewhere still. Um,
Yeah. I did not care for the way that woman was speaking about the Pope.
I
Like
don't
she
care
was
for
like,
that woman.
well, yeah, but she's like supposed to be on the like head of this committee that is like planning the Pope's visit, and she's like super involved with the church, but she's also like mocking the fact that the Pope has like a vow of poverty. Um,
Yeah.
Also, first of all, bedrolls are incredibly comfortable. Step one. Step two, I know a lot of priests and nuns, and they sleep in beds.
Also, her comment that he does it to be closer to the gays made no sense.
No, that wasn't, she was like, you know, she was like making fun of like his beliefs. And she was like, you know how it is, like rule of poverty, love the gays, like loving, like, because, okay,
Like I missed that line somewhere along the way.
yes. So, I'm trying to think, when did our current pope become the pope? Um,
I think it came out that everyone was okay with the gays in like 2015, 2016. I think
um,
that because it was when I was in law school.
so, because Pope Benedict, the
Mhm.
pope before our current pope, resigned, which was weird, and everyone was super uncomfortable with it because, like, you're if being the
He
pope
died.
was like actually being one with God, you can't just like resign from that. It was
Yeah,
a
you
weird
just are
time.
until you die. Right.
Correct. So it was a weird time, but Pope Francis, who succeeded Pope Benedict, became the Pope in 2013. And so he was the whole changing of a Pope from a living Pope um,
New.
was super liberal for the Catholic Church. And then Pope Francis was also the first South American Pope, which was like super new that he wasn't European. And then also he was like, yeah, no, like we can't hate gay people. Like they still can't get married in the Catholic Church, but like we can't hate them.
Right. Yeah.
And people were like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Um,
It was wild. Wild times in
yeah,
the
yeah.
world of Catholicism.
Pope Francis is changing things up.
Sure is. Um,
Which this pope obviously is not a real pope because I think it would probably be like super fucked up to use the real pope in a show about exorcisms.
I feel like that's not allowed. I
I
feel
don't,
like
yeah, I think you
you
can't
would not be.
talk about the pope like that. So
Yeah.
Pope
Well, also like name
Sebastian,
and likeness is a legal issue. And so like you can't represent someone without their approval if they're a public figure.
that's true, and the church definitely would not give approval to this.
No.
Um,
No.
Pope Francis is liberal, but he's not insane.
Right. No. I mean, they won't let
Um,
Meghan, like, Europe won't let Meghan Markle act on TV anymore. You think that the Catholic Church is going to let the Pope be a part of an Exorcist TV show? Like, no, absolutely
Meghan
not.
Markle was a terrible actress. It's better for her that she can't
No, I
act
like
anymore.
her.
I fucking hate her. I
No,
hate her
I
more
like
than I hate
her.
most humans. She is a manipulative,
No.
psychopathic bitch.
Oh,
She
okay.
lied about
It's
not knowing
okay.
anything about the royal family. She lied about not knowing anything about the royal family when she started dating Harry, and then all of her friends were like, "No, she's like obsessed. Like she's a fucking psychopath."
Look, to be fair though, like, if you hit it off with one of the princes,
I would tell them that I know everything about their entire family because it'd be fucking weird if I didn't.
oh, well, that's true. You would tell them. But I was like, it's not that you wouldn't follow through, but you would tell them probably first.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true.
I wouldn't play dumb. I just, oh, God, I
That's
fucking hate
fair.
her. I,
It's okay. I like term suits, but it's fine. Um, yeah. So this woman apparently has been donating a lot to the church, and so she thinks she rules the world. That's what I'm picking up.
I mean,
Um, yeah, that's how it works. I get it, but doesn't mean I like her any better.
yeah.
Um, and then I don't know if you could see this. I am blind, but Angela gets a text message, and I couldn't see what it said.
I couldn't see what it said
Okay,
either.
good. I like paused it and tried to zoom in, and I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I tried very hard. Um, but then shortly after, she gets this text message, and this rich crazy woman leaves. She gets the call from Casey, and it's just the demon breathing. And so she rushes home to check on everyone. No one's there. So she calls Casey to try and like find her where she's at. And the phone's ringing upstairs. And so she goes upstairs. And this is such a poorly done scene. She goes to like reach for the phone, and it is so dramatically drawn out that there is like no effect. Like I was like, something's either going to jump out or there's going to be a noise. Like there's no, it wasn't, it wasn't very
Yeah.
subtle that this was meant to be like a jump scene, I guess. Um,
Yeah, but actually I kind of liked I agree that it wasn't subtle, but I liked the fact that like they didn't do it when you thought they were going to do it.
well, they had the like they had them coming inside, so they had the door slamming, so they still had like something happen, and
Yeah.
not the big dramatic part, obviously, but
Yeah,
yes, the
but
phone's on her
time
bed.
the timing of the mini jump of the door and then the
That
actual
was
jump after it actually I was like
yeah,
I kind of don't hate that.
that's fair. I didn't care for the first part, but the second half was good, which is where they came in. They had been out with their dad, and she goes to like grab her phone or whatever, and she's like looking at her phone on the bed, and she's like almost scared look on her face, and like she doesn't remember how it got there. That's what I gathered. I'm making this up
Yeah,
on
no,
the
I
fly. That's what I gathered.
that's what I thought happened too. I thought she was like not remembering leaving her phone at home.
Right. And so Angela goes to pick up the phone to give it to her. When she picks it up, there's a centipede under it, and she just like drops the phone, and
Yeah,
they
because
pull
that's
the covers
fucking
back.
terrifying.
Yeah, they pull the covers back, and it's just like a an array of centipedes. So I would never sleep again. Never in my
And
life.
actually, they were millipedes, not centipedes, which is worse
I
because
was
they're
going to ask
fucking
you to
huge.
clarify.
Yeah, no, they were millipedes. They're fucking
And those
huge.
are poisonous, right? Like those are
Yeah,
not
no,
safe.
you should not be hanging out with millipedes. No, no, no.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So then we go to Tomas, and he gets home and there's music playing in his house. So he's like wandering around trying to figure out what's going on. Turns out Father
Which,
Marcus is there.
yeah, which is only kind of weird because it came right from the last scene of a house having weird shit
Yeah.
happening in it. And so you were like, what the fuck is going on
Yeah.
in this town?
Right. And like he
Okay.
like it seems to,
Also, sorry, I want to point out that the episode started with something that was really weird to me, that we didn't talk about. Because the episode started with this kid getting on his bike and listening to music.
oh yeah, I have like a roundup at the end for that.
Okay,
But yeah.
because that's how it started, and I was like, okay, whatever, like different neighborhood in the city, like blah blah blah. And
Mhm.
then he showed up again for a moment later. So then when the third time he shows up, I was like, what is up with this kid?
Yep. Yep. Oh, we'll talk about that. Don't worry, because that
Yeah.
was one of my favorite parts of the episode. um, even though I understand it was a little more subtle. So yeah, so Father Marcus is there, and he says that he's been sightseeing, and he's commenting on Tomas being a Nicolas Cage fan. And Tomas is like, no, you've been missing for a week. Like they said you left right after I left, and no one knew where you were. And he's just like, yeah, just been wandering. Everything's fine, like just super
Uh,
casually. And then Tomas starts like yelling, and he's like, why are you here? You have to go home. You can't be here. And he's like, you asked me to come, and now I'm here.
yeah,
Like you wanted my help. And I was like, Tomas, he's not wrong. Like you did ask him for help, so this is on you. This is on you, buddy.
truly.
Um, and then we learn from Marcus that there are stages of demonic possession. And while I'm sure this will be explained further, we right now we learn that Casey's is probably in the playing possum stage, which sounds terrifying.
Absolutely fucking awful.
Um,
Sounds
is this like
horrible.
a thing you're familiar with? Like, do they
Nope.
talk about this in Catholicism? Okay, cool,
Nope.
cool, cool.
Remember, like I said, I think they pretend
Right.
that they never did exorcisms. Like it's not a thing
I
that
think
we discuss
yeah.
at all.
That's always been my understanding is it's been like more of a mark on the Catholic Church, and they just pretend like they never did.
Yeah, I think
But
exorcisms fall into the same category as like touching little boys. We like to pretend that that was a thing that never happened. And to be fair, same as touching little boys, not all priests. But
sure, not good. It's not good anywhere.
no.
But they are supposed to be a man of the cloth. Like they're on a higher pedestal.
No,
Um,
no, I'm just saying, like, not all priests. Not we're like that. Like, not
oh,
that's
oh, okay, yeah, yeah. No, not
yeah.
all
Like,
priests. I
no,
thought you
not
meant
all.
like not just priests.
Oh,
I
yeah.
heard it
No,
wrong.
definitely not just priests, but also like not all priests are shitty
Right.
people. Some people use the
Sure.
church as a facade
For
for bad
sure.
things,
Hmm.
and then the church didn't know how to handle the bad publicity and like shielded the bad people, which
Hmm.
then like made the church look worse, and like it was just like a cycle of fucked up shit.
I mean, it's the same
And
way it happens in
I think they
government.
were like, we could just like hide the exorcisms in there too, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
Put
Whoa.
that in the other pocket and then we'll see what happens. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds all right. Um, yeah, and so this is where we figure out a bit more about St. Aquinas. It's where they sent all the broken priests. And we don't at this moment really know what that means, but as the episode goes along, we do realize that he's kind of lost his ability to be a priest since the last exorcism with Gabriel, and he's never been
Yeah.
the same. And so, since he is a quote unquote broken priest, he stays the same Aquinas because he doesn't have anywhere else. And I think it probably also has to. This did not get into it, but I think he also might have like an alcohol addiction or something. Like he seems like he's got some kind of addiction thing going on from when he was like dealing with the Gabriel stuff, talking to Father Bennett.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm
I
sure
mean, I
we'll
feel
learn
like that
more.
would drive me to drink also.
That drug me to do a lot of things. Drinking would be the least of the things I did probably. So yeah, totally get it. Totally fair. If I was doing exorcisms, I would be drinking and
Yeah.
high, and
So many
a lot
things.
of things would be happening in my life.
Yeah.
So we learned about all this, yada yada, and then he says, "Who's Jessica?" And then we go to Kat, who is sitting at Casey's lacrosse practice and just watching her being a good big sis. And then this creepy old man just like appears in the seat beside her.
Yeah.
And
I wrote, who's the creepy old guy?
yeah, yeah. And Casey sees him and like acknowledges him, and he just like sends
Yeah,
her a
the fact
little
that she like
hello.
smiled at him, I was like, the fuck is happening?
Yeah. And she's clearly struggling through this game. So he like is watching her and she's struggling. And then I did really like the way they did this scene. He stands up and then we get her kind of like rising in slow motion, and it's like his energy shifted into her,
Yeah.
and she's watching the like everything happen, and immediately the girl's like leg snaps, and it's like that feels like a little bit of demonic energy going onto the field.
First started the game and Casey got knocked over, I was like, you know how in The Incredibles, Bob wouldn't let Dash do track because like you can't be a superhero and run track. It's not fair. I feel like there should also be a rule about demons playing sports.
Yeah, yeah, you can't be a demon and play sports. I think that's a fair rule. um I'm sorry, my phone just told me it was like on 20%, so I'm gonna
Oh
close it
no.
down. It's fine. I just have to get
It's
my Ford
okay.
in order.
It also
Um,
weirdly reminds me of the time that Stefan Salvatore played football in Vampire Diaries and had to like work really hard to
yes.
like not kill
Be
people.
like, yeah, yeah. Always go back to Vampire Diaries. Love it.
Always.
Um, yeah. So our girl's leg is snapped, and we go back to Marcus and Tomas, and we just jump right back into our conversation. We
Yeah.
learned that Jessica is not just a friend who is also married. She is someone he is involved with or has been in the near past. So it's not innocent. He also said he went to Loyola. I'm sure it was Chicago's Loyola,
Yeah.
but I also
Oh
went
yeah.
to Loyola, so I
Yes.
just want to
No.
make this comment that I also. It's like we're alumni, like besties or something, like you know, from different schools, brother from another mother, but schools.
Yeah. No, it
Um,
was definitely Chicago's Loyola.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's talking about like he's like how he can't give up Jessica because he's like never give up something beautiful, and it's like there's that's not really how it works though. Like
You joined the
she's
priesthood.
yeah, you
Literally,
join the
like
priesthood so you
literally
Yeah.
being a priest is about giving things up. Like that's like the whole
Yeah.
fucking point.
That's the whole shtick. Like, you can't be with her in general, but also she's married. Like,
Right. No, 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 for sure. Like,
yeah.
but
Like, there are
like
two whammies
if
against you.
she's gonna like step out on her marriage, like that's her problem. And I
Right.
understand that like you also shouldn't encourage someone to be active in an affair, but like also that's her problem.
Right.
But you're doing the same thing because literally your vows are that the church is your bride. Like you are married
Right.
to Christ. Like that is the whole fucking thing. So
And
like
that
you're
feels
also
worse than like
it,
just a
like
general
you're
husband.
yeah, like you're like stepping out on not just a marriage, but like an institution and belief system, and that feels big.
That feels a lot bigger than like stepping out on Jim, whoever
Yeah.
he may be.
Right.
So,
Like not that I encourage that at all,
right.
but one of
But
you
if
is
you had to
more
weigh
wrong.
one,
Like one
yes.
of you is more wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, but he does encourage and he has to break it off. And that feels like it's setting us up for
Well,
some
I
demon
my
issues with
note.
Jessica.
Oh yeah, no, my note in this scene was secrets are no fun. That's just all I wrote. But it was because the way he was talking about like Jessica and what the demon could do to use that against him, like reminded me of Karas and his mom in the movie. And I was like, yeah, no. And then I was thinking about like all of the like fucked up things that could be used against people by a demon. And it just was like, you know,
No, no joy. No joy in your life.
yeah.
Or it might get possessed. You never know. So now we go to family game night. And Henry actually seems like he's kind of lucid today, which is nice.
I loved it. I
They're,
loved the Henry
you know,
scenes because he was like getting along with his family.
and they're playing Jenga, which is always fun and sometimes terrifying because it's a huge Jenga. Um,
That was like a double-sized Jenga set. Like
that's
those
like bar
blocks.
Jenga.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, not like home Jenga.
Yeah, those were
So,
like the blocks were like the size of television remotes.
yeah, that's like, so my parents have an outdoor Jenga. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So then Angela gets home. She's late for game night, so they're a little like snippy. But she's like, I'm so sorry, I'm late for game night. And then she's like talking about like all of these things or whatever, and Kat starts being so snarky. And she's like, she was like, oh, you better watch out because she's coming for you next. She's gonna tell Thomas you're possessed next. I'm like, well, she is, but she's possessed.
Right.
And you are not. And so she brings up Casey and uh she's like, yeah, you know, some weird things have been happening, you're not yourself, like telling, and then she's telling Henry, she's like, she's not herself, some things are going on. And then she like pulls, this is another scene I like, she pulls out the Jingo block and everybody's like, oh my god, it's gonna fall, what are you doing? And it doesn't for a minute. And like you see her like just peeking through the like
Eyeball through the
hole
hole
that
of the
Jim
Jenga
said.
set. Oh yeah.
It was like, it was wild. And then of course it did fall, but like not for a minute. And yeah, everything falls and it kind of felt like everything in the world was crashing down at that moment. So not to read too much into it. But yeah, so we go back to the church and it seems like we're having one of the homeless programs where they're talking about how they came out of everything. And Angela arrives to tell Tomas about Casey. And she's like,
Mhm.
this is really not great. Like bad things are happening. And this is when he tells her to go to therapy, which is feels like very direct from the movie. It's essentially the same scene that happened in the movie.
Yeah.
And so she starts filling her water bottle with holy water. And I was like,
Yeah, she like
that
watches
is
him blast the water and then she's like, well, I'm gonna take this into my own fucking hands.
that's so like cliche for this type of situation, but it felt like it fit here. So like I thought it was the only correct choice.
Right.
And of course, Father Marcus walks up and he says, don't they say God helps those who help themselves? And I was like, don't think he meant stealing holy water, but all right, like sure. And
Sure.
I love Marcus because he like clearly feels something for this institution, but he also is like, there's also real life. Like you have
Well,
to.
no, the thing I think is true about Marcus, and I think it's true with a lot of ex-Catholics, is that he
Mhm.
feels something very strongly about God, but not necessarily about the institution. And I
Right,
think
right,
and I think that that's part of the problem is his um doubt of the institution feeds into a doubt of God, which is
right.
why he's a broken priest, because he's not able to command the spirit the way he was before, but it's because he's doubting the institution based on everything that has happened to him.
Yeah. Yep. That sounds right to me. So he's like, do you know how to use this or whatever? And she's just like caught off guard. He's like, you have to put in your drinking water. He's like, it's gonna suck for the demon and it's gonna suck for the people watching, but she'll be fine. Like it's not
Yeah, it
gonna
won't
affect
it
her.
won't hurt her. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Marcus actually meets Casey while she's feeding the homeless. And the old man from across the street who we saw in the first episode comes up and starts talking to her. And he's
Yeah,
telling her,
my note says, why did I think that was Paul Giamatti? When he first started talking to her and it was just like the close up of his face, I was like, is that Paul Giamatti? And then he starts talking and go, no, it's not. But I was so convinced. I was like, how did I not know he was in this?
Paul's had a few rough years, if that's him. That's bless his heart. Not non Paul Giamatti comes up and he's talking to Casey and he's like, he chose you, let me touch you, he chose you. And he's like losing his mind, obviously. And so, Marcus goes to pull him off, all these other people do, she drops everything she's doing. And then once he like leans in, he's like he starts speaking in Latin to him,
He
to
says, call
Marcus.
upon the devil.
Yeah, and he's like, and it's the devil inside of him has also recognized Marcus. And if you didn't put two and two together, this is how you
So
would know that he is the
cute.
child in the beginning. Um,
Cute.
yeah. So then we go to Tomas and Jessica, and he's asking her what to do with everything. And she's like, oh, we're here about work. And I'm like, okay, okay, hold on, Jessica. Like, this isn't just about work. We think there's a demon possession going on. Like, that's a little bit bigger than anything
Yeah,
else you have
I
happening.
don't like her. Like, I
I don't
already
like her
obviously
either.
I obviously like already stated my opinions on their relationship as a whole, but like, okay,
Mm,
if Dan, obviously it's a little different because we're in a healthy, correct relationship. But if he were to call me and ask me to meet up and then spend an hour just like venting to me about all of his work problems, I would not then immediately ask why it wasn't about me. Like, no,
yeah.
no,
But also, like this isn't even like a petty work problem. Like,
no,
I
this is
also
like,
wouldn't do that even for petty work problems. But like demon possession, that's like
yeah,
that doesn't
like
happen every
an
day. First of
entire
all,
crisis of faith and your entire career because people won't listen to you, but you're sure you're right. Like,
right, right. Like there's a lot going on here. So,
yeah.
and we learned she's lying to everyone. She's like, I had to make up like three lies to
She
get here,
literally
and
was
I'm
like, I had to
like,
tell 3 different lies to get here tonight. Okay, well, how about don't?
right, like that's your first problem. That's your first thing you've done wrong, and you're just like she's just feeding it. Not that it's not just her fault. It's also his fault, but she's just feeding into it. Like you're like putting this on him now too, when you know that you're just doing wrong. So like it's just too
Right.
much.
And then,
Um,
but also, we find out that he hasn't written her back. Like, he has been trying to stop this, but now he's
in over a year.
right. So he didn't write her
Mhm.
back a letter for over a year. And then also, immediately when she starts trying to flirt with him, asks how her husband is. And I was like, maybe I'm not as mad at you as I was.
Yeah, like you're trying. Like you're not doing spectacular, but you're doing better than I expected. So
Correct.
there's that.
Yeah.
Um, but we also find things are not good with her husband, and it seems like common knowledge. So it makes me wonder, like, are they not good because she's never been in love with him because she's always been in love with Tomas? or are they not good because he's like abusive or something like that she can't get away from? Like, what kind of not good
Right.
are we talking
Because,
about?
like, if they're not good because she's not a good person, it's fine. But if they're not good because he's bad to her, Tomas is gonna, like, feel bad and get sucked into the fucking
Yeah.
drama.
Yeah, it's not gonna go well. So
No.
I'm sure we'll find out.
Also, like,
Stay
hopefully she's
tuned.
not just, like, lying. Because, like, been there, um, with the other person just, like, lying about how bad things actually are to try to get you to stay. Um, it's not cute.
Yeah. Yeah. So, which I mean, they've known each other for a long time, so hopefully he like actually knows what's going on in her life, but you just never know.
Yeah.
Um, so then we go to Marcus, who is going to the homeless camps to find this guy who told him to speak of the devil. But instead, we see a white van picking people up and driving off into the sunset.
That was
So,
icky.
yeah. And then he goes to look in the tent, and there's a creepy woman who is possessed and is
You
taunting
know
him
how
about.
you know how in the first episode she literally told us that there was
Mhm.
like more demons than just her? I didn't expect to find so many so fast.
So many so fast. Yeah, absolutely. Hold on. Holy water. Nope, not there yet. Jessica, Marcus. Okay, so he's talking to the creepy woman who's possessed. Tons of demons everywhere.
Yeah.
And this is where we realize that like because he's a broken priest, it nothing he does works anymore. The words
Yeah.
don't work. The cross doesn't work. Like he's like she's touching it to her forehead and it's not burning her. Like it's a situation. Um, and then we go back to Angela's, and we see her putting the holy water into Casey's water for family dinner. And we're sitting down with each other, and we see Henry's doing the prayer, and it's kind of sad. He gets distracted in the middle of it, and she has to remind him the words. Um, and then she's like apologizing again for not being at family game night. And Kat's like, "Are you sorry for thinking that I'm the devil?" She's like, "Yes." She's like,
Then
"I'm
actually like her
sorry."
apology was like so sweet and genuine, like genuine. Like I was like about just like being sorry that she doesn't know how to be a mom for what the girls are going through right now. And like I was like, that is, I wish more parents were like honest about that.
Yeah. And it's like totally fair. Like, how do you know how to handle a possession? You don't.
Well, no, but not even that. Well, like Kat literally lost a friend
With her
in a car
friend, yeah.
accident, and like how do you watch your kid struggle with death? Like that's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Not an easy
hard.
thing.
It's so hard.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so then Casey drinks the water and nothing happens. So we're like, okay. And then they're kind of chatting, just kind of doing family stuff. And then she's like, immediately bells on family night, goes upstairs and immediately vomits everywhere. It's
And I
like,
was like, whoop, there it
oh,
is.
yep. So it did get her. And then a centipede comes out, or a millipede comes out of her mouth, which is
Yeah. That
icky.
was
I did
I
not
was
watch this whole season.
I
I will
I
not
looked
lie.
I looked down to take a note and then I was really glad that I did because when I looked back up the millipede was in the toilet and I was like, ooh, ooh,
Yeah,
okay. Good thing I looked at my
yeah,
phone. Great.
yeah, not great. So then she goes to hang out outside because she's reeling now from vomiting water. And the creepy man from the game shows up and sits beside her, and she lays her head on his shoulder, and she's telling him all this stuff and talking to him.
I was
And
like, who does she think she's talking to? Like, what is who
because it's like she's talking to like a grandpa, like that's the like relationship
like
that it
the
feels
the thing
like.
is like it feels like it's somebody that she actually has a relationship with. The demon is like taking the form of that person, but like
Yeah,
that guy is like creepy and just like keeps showing up. And who does she even think she's talking
right.
to?
But if you remember, that's how it happened in the original film too. Is she had her friend who did the Ouija board with her, um, that
Oh
only she
yeah,
knew about. And then
yeah. But the thing is, she
Henry,
knew she knew that that was a ghost though. Like Like, she knew that she was messing
Yeah.
with a Ouija board and that was a ghost. Casey thinks that this is a person, like, that she can see that is with her. She doesn't,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, it's slightly different.
Yeah. And Henry looks out the window and there's no guy there. He just sees her leaning her head over and talking to herself. And that sucks. That's a shame. So then we go to Tomas again, who's going through these books and pictures and snapshots. When Marcus gets home, we learn it's all Marcus's pictures of things that like he's done in places he's been, exorcisms he's held, etc., etc. Um, and that's when he starts talking about speak of the devil and he will appear. Um, and then Tomas starts telling him to leave. He's like, you have to get out of here. Um, and then he kind of gives us his sob story. And we learn that this happened because Marcus found out his dad killed his mom. And then he, like, or while he was there, and then he went to a boys' home. And then he was sold to the church, which is why he did this creepy circle downstairs.
Yeah.
The weird demon thing.
Yeah.
And he says he saw the face of God and it was so loud. And he heard his voice and it was just so loud and everything. And it was and then he says, he's like, but he knows now that he's not currently fit. And he's lost like all of this like godliness that he had after he failed exorcism with Gabriel. And then Tomas finally tells him that he saw Jessica today.
He was like, so now, and what? And Tomas said, I don't know. So now you see that they're both fucking like broken and kind of need each other as much as they need to fix the problems.
Right. Which is Marcus says, why don't we do this together? He's like, we should try to approach this together. And then we see the bike kid for the third time. As you mentioned, we see him starting the episode. He drives by when they're outside at one point, and now he's going home.
When we saw him going home, I literally said out loud to myself, who is this kid? What is the point?
Well, turns out the point is he went inside and he greeted his family, but his headphones were on, so he couldn't hear anything. And his mother was being murdered after his father had already been murdered, and she was trying to warn him, but he didn't hear anything. So when he went to the bathroom, he also got murdered, and their organs were harvested. And then we go outside, and the creepy old man outside, or the creepy man from outside, along with multiple other homeless people, are carrying
like 9 or
organs?
10 of them. Like, it was too many.
It's 9.
I was so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. It's 9.
Well, no, it was 9. No, they said it was 9 people murdered, but the one house there was 3. So I think there was 6 people outside with coolers, but it was still too many.
Yeah, and so they go down the street with their coolers. They get to the white van that we saw leaving the homeless camp earlier, and and then the next day on the news, we hear about 9 people being murdered, and the news is blaming it on gang-related accidents.
Well, gang-related
activity.
They're blaming it on gang-related activity because there's no shooting; it's just stabbing. And unfortunately, we all know Chicago is not a pleasant city, and West Englewood is the African American neighborhood. It's like it's a black neighborhood in Chicago, and
one of the poorest neighborhoods in Chicago.
Yeah, and as with a lot of big cities, that is the story that gets put on the news. But to be fair to the news, they literally said the police wouldn't give them any information. Like, the police didn't say the police didn't say that it was a gang, but the police were like, no, we can't discuss it, and it's creepy, like mass homicide with a bunch of organs removed. So like, either it's a fucking serial killer or it's a gang. Like, that, it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was it's hard to come out with that. Yeah. So and that's where we end.
Well, no. Yes, but no. Where we end is Marcus immediately knowing that news article is not correct, and getting up and looking out the window, and the shot of the giant billboard of the Pope that just says he is coming, like, that was like fucking intense.
Yeah, that was very creepy. So that was episode 2. Um, yeah, I have a couple of so I already told you it was with the wolf where it says speak of the wolf and he will come. That's
Yeah.
from uh Terrence's play Adelphi, which is where it was first heard, but has in future times been
Yeah.
related to Speaking of the Devil. The other one I have is the boarded up house with the X on it. It was called that way by Google cameras. And so October 2015, you could get on like Google Earth, and that's the house that showed up in that area. And it was the one that they set up for this filming, for this taping,
Oh,
which is
nice.
fun. Yeah. So that's good for the area, I'm sure.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so who do you want to punch in the face?
Paul Giamatti, who's not really Paul Giamatti.
That is the correct answer. Um, I'm gonna pick, this is just out of pure annoyance myself. I'm picking Father Egan because I didn't
Fair.
like how much he blew off Tomas.
That's fair.
Even if it may have been for the right reasons or whatever, it just
Yeah.
wouldn't even listen. He was just like, no, you did the things you had to do for the business sense, and so you're fine. Don't do anything else. And that just felt out of place. So
Yeah.
who's your MVP?
Um, I'm gonna go with Angela just for the apology to the girls and for the holy water thing. Like that,
Yeah. Yeah. So you picked all of mine, which is of course makes sense.
yeah.
But since you went with Angela, I'm gonna go with Marcus because he's been through a lot and he's coming to help save the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, just texting. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. You're having a time tonight.
Oh, my aunt just texted me. When you get home at night, don't turn your light on as soon as you go inside. If people can see your windows from the street, if someone followed you, they will know what apartment you are in. Be careful. Always love you. That's what to text
He's
me
a
at 10:30 at night.
100% correct. Probably not the timing because you've lived there for quite some time. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but also like I usually get home at daytime or really late at night. Like no
yeah.
one's outside when I get home usually, so it's probably okay. I'm probably not gonna die. That's
No.
fine. I won't have any anxiety going to sleep tonight. Do you have any predictions for next episode?
I don't because I had predictions and they all either like could still happen or but also the rate at which things are moving is confusing me. So like I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's totally to subvert everything that you think is going to happen or if they're just doing it badly. Like I don't know.
Yeah. That's totally fair. I think that Henry is going to be the one to start seeing this stuff and no one's going to believe him
That's so sad,
because
but so
yeah,
so likely. Oh, I hate that.
yeah. And I think Jessica's going to die. Like just I think
Yeah.
it's going to happen.
I'm like afraid that they're going to go like obviously it's the Exorcist, there's demons everywhere. Like, but I'm afraid that they're gonna
Sure.
try to like loop something else into it with like the organs and stuff. And like
Yeah.
I don't want them to try to like do multiple genres at once. Like I just
Well, you think about it, that's the same thing we said about Bates Motel with the weed.
yeah. Which fair, but then when Hemlock Grove did it with the cult, we were right.
True. Yeah. Yeah. That
So
is true.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't
Because
know
yeah,
either.
because like Hemlock Grove, are we talking like Bates Motel season 3 or Hemlock Grove season 3? Because like,
Very different season threes. Very different season threes.
and both of them we had the same fear, and one of them was right.
So this will be the tiebreaker then. We'll see what happens. That's how we're
Right.
gonna do it.
Too bad
Um,
this show didn't even get a season 3, so
that's true. That's true. Maybe they wrapped it up. Maybe it was like a mini series for 2
maybe.
seasons. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
I don't
see.
know.
We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. yeah, so after this has gone off the rails, we are sorry as always. Um, I think that's all I have. So if you have any
Yeah.
questions, concerns, want to talk about this, have theories, and haven't seen it yet, want to compare it to Hemlock Grover Bates Motel, please feel free to email us, deathandaliens@gmail.com. Find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CECloud13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you on Sunday for episode 3, season 4 of Stargate. Bye.
Bye.